Welcome back to another episode of NFL News on the Boomer Bust channel. I'm your host Terry, and today this is our halfway point Q2 check-in for the season. We are past week 9 going into week 10. Trade deadlines today, election day, go out and vote, everything. I want to focus on who the contenders are today. Typically I'll go through the overrated storylines, underrated surprises, stuff like that, and we will sprinkle a little bit of that, but mainly I want to focus on the contenders because I didn't talk about them last time, and halfway point I feel really strongly about where we are in terms of contenders, so I want to do that first. And keep in mind, when I say contenders, we're talking about for the championship. We're not talking about to make the playoffs. We're not talking about to get a playoff win. We're talking about who has potential to go all the way to the Super Bowl. And on top of that, with, projections of health, we know at any time a big key piece to the team, especially quarterback, would change everything. So that's obviously, goes without saying. So, all right, so let's get to it. Let's start. We're going to go AFC, NFC. This isn't a particular order, but we're going to go AFC, NFC just to keep it easy and I don't have to bounce back and forth. So the Chiefs, the returning champs, undefeated, comeback victories, overtime victories. I don't think they had a blowout. I don't remember, but either way, the hallmarks of a team, we know what it is. It's not just, hey, Pat Mahomes is the best quarterback. It is very much, when you watch dynasties, and the most recent one being the Patriots, you understand, if you actually paid attention and a football fan, you understand that those are teams that not only hold themselves to a high standard, high expectation, but they know how to win games in different ways. That's one thing I noticed as an outside Patriots fan over time. They win in different ways. And so while week to week, the media might be like, oh my God, are they slipping? Whether they're undefeated or not, you still see that they're able to play different styles. And that's what really makes you not only a contender for 1 year, but for multiple years, because you keep that core group together. You have that experience. You get into the playoffs and you don't panic. You don't panic if you down 14. You don't panic if you up 10. You don't panic if a team is coming back because you've been through all that. So that's what that is. But right now, one of the popular phrases, I should say, if you don't know, is hate to see me coming. That's what everybody likes to say. McGriddle, hate to see me coming. Or I know Buffalo Wild Wings hate to see me coming, whatever that. And that's kind of how I'm going to approach this with the teams. That makes you a contender. So with the Chiefs, I know a team hates to see Chris Jones coming. We know he's a game wrecker. If you're a stat sniffer, and that is my new phrase, if you see it rolling around, I said, I'm so tired of stat sniffers. Like, well, this says and isn't the PPS. Like, no, like numbers tell one part of the story. Look at the whole thing. So if you're looking at his numbers and you think Chris Jones fell off, you're completely wrong. What he does stirs the drink. And really in the last 3 years, being able to put him on the edge just elevated it. So being able to put Chris Jones in different ways, command attention, is huge, because it's not a 4-man rush team. This is a heavy blitz team. They show you different looks. They play good coverage. So having one guy command a lot of attention in a heavy blitz scheme, especially on third down, that's a recipe for disaster. So you hate to see that coming. You hate to see the Chiefs secondary coming. Like I said, really well disciplined. Miss Snead, definitely. They got a couple injuries, but really well coached. Disciplined coverage, not giving up a lot of bust, sticky coverage, and then playing top down, and then again being able to blitz. You hate to see those things coming. You hate to see Pat Mahomes coming. Obviously, we all know that. Now you got a team that isn't as explosive as it used to be. A run game that is still very much leading the pack. Despite Pacheco going down, and Pacheco is coming back, Kareem Hunt able to step in, Carson Steele able to give you a little bit of something. And then, to be honest, the biggest thing, like I said, is the run game leading, but then having a special quarterback that you know can plug in those gaps. Have there been times where it's like, hey, we're going to kind of have to be more 55, 58% past this game? Yes. And yes, you want Mahomes for those times. But really what you would love, like you see most games, is the run game to control the clock, control the down and distance, and then just let Mahomes do some of the layups for first downs and let him pick up the tough third downs when he needs to. And if you look at one of the newer stats that I like is success rate. And I believe what it measures in terms of the run game are positive plays. I don't know if it's strictly positive, but essentially it's how often are you getting positive plays on first and second down, early down success, essentially. And the Chiefs are like, well, they were number one most of the time. I don't know what they are right now, but you see it. That's what they do. No, they're not ripping off 20-yard gains or rushing for 200 yards a game, but they are really good at first and second down, keeping the down and distant manageable, and that's what the Chiefs do. So, but you know, if it has to get into Superman mode, Mahomes is somebody you don't want to see coming. And the Chiefs, so yeah, we don't got to spend too much time. The Bills, I will give the Bills the label as contender. You hate to see Josh Allen coming. We all know that. Very similar to what I said with the Chiefs. You hate to see Josh Allen coming, but you really hate to see this Josh Allen where he's not giving up a bunch of turnovers. That's a super scary quarterback. We know he can extend the play. We know he could flip the field with a pass. We know he can even run, get those tough yards. So we know all that special things. But again, a team that is run oriented right now, ball control, not giving the ball up. I wouldn't say necessarily as efficient as the Chiefs, but still that's the type of style that they're playing with. Cooper, I believe he played one game. I know he missed the last one. Amari Cooper is a great addition. He's a solid vet. I'm not saying he's about to be a superstar, and they don't need him to be. I think the weapons they have with Josh Allen's ability are enough to, again, get those layups and maybe those tougher third downs when you need to, but they want to run the ball. The thing that I cannot sign off is their defense. And this is not based on film study, so I'll be very upfront about that. I have seen them live in certain things, but this is very much the personnel. I don't believe they have the experience and the talent combination to be difference makers in the playoffs. But they have played way above their means. Sean McDermott has to get credit, and his staff. They have a competent staff and game plan that keeps the team disciplined. And we'll see, but I'm not putting my money on that defense. Von Miller, when he was playing, he'll be back off suspension. He was playing a lot better. Russo really was taking the next step. Espinoza, he's been doing pretty good. But even with a better edge rush than I think they've had in the past, Matt Milano's gone, and I just don't trust that secondary. I honestly don't. I don't really trust them to stay healthy, and I also don't trust them, again, in terms of in the playoffs. So I don't know that a team hates to see the Bills defense come in, and I get that they're ranked pretty respectively, but in the long term, I'm not necessarily buying into that. But again, when you have an offense being efficient and you have Josh that can pick up some slack when need be, the defense doesn't have to be spectacular. They just really got to play top down and mistake free. So the Ravens are absolutely in the contender list. And I know they're below the Steelers in the standings for AFC North right now, so playoffs. But I do think the Ravens will win the division. And even if they don't, to be honest, I don't see the Steelers as a contender. But the Ravens for sure are. And so let me say up top, credit to Lamar Jackson. All credit to Lamar Jackson. And this isn't necessarily based off film study. I got to be consistent. I've seen him play live a couple times, but this isn't film study. It's a little bit of the numbers, but it's more so, again, what I've seen and how he plays. He has evolved. He has, I won't say completely evolved, but he has definitely taken that step. And as much flack as I've gotten, and Lamar just seems to have that whatever weird, I'll always call it out. There's a weird discourse around Lamar that people like to do. But either way, despite people calling me a hater and all that because I pointed out things he's not so good at, I've always been pretty consistent at giving him congratulations. That year where he ended up hurt before the playoffs, that was the year where he really was like, I'm going to play in the pocket. And it wasn't great. And a lot of people kept saying, you got away from yourself. Even last year in the playoffs, oh, he's getting away from himself. You got to run the ball. Even he felt that way. Unfortunately, he might feel that way. But I think this year shows you that all that work he put into it, it mattered. And not only that, but it takes some time. It was never going to be perfect in 1 year. And so I remember early in the season, I had put on my channel, I was watching and I said, Lamar Jackson has reached a point where he can make a defense pay for a coverage bust consistently. And that's a specific thing, but if you think about it like a video game, like a Madden or any other video game, you might have a specific like skill set, but in that skill set is a bunch of different moves you gotta master before you unlock the full skill set. And so once you unlock the skill set, you can level up and all that. So as a pocket passer, being able to make a defense pay for a coverage bust consistently is one move, but that's something that he didn't have in the bag before. And I do think he had that in a couple other things, and it's showing. And so I don't think it's necessarily a debate of run pass, selection. Oh, they should be running more. They shouldn't be passing as much. They're just trying to show off Lamar. No, it's none of that. It's all about situational football. What I see from him that he's able to do now that he was not able to do even last year. And so him taking that time, taking that challenge, even though he might have said I should have ran and this and that, he knows, I think, that the work he put in the past has been paying off. And today he looks like that type of quarterback legitly. And that's a scary quarterback. I mean, that is a terrifying quarterback. The only thing you can say about Lamar that, especially if you're pairing like Josh Allen, maybe a Mahomes, and it's the same thing Jaden Daniels going to deal with, is the frame. You might be scared of injury. That's not because of his injury history. That's not because of him. And him and Jaden Daniels are two different people. But still, just the frame alone is always going to make people pause and worry when he gets hit. Like if Lamar gets a clean shot versus Josh Allen or Justin Herbert getting a clean shot, or Anthony Richardson, and that might be a bad example right now, but you know what I mean. That people are just naturally going to be more cautious because of the way his frame is. But other than that, man, that's a dangerous quarterback. There's nothing you could really say. And so, and I do want to make it clear that when I pointed out the issues in the playoffs in the past, for me, it's never been a mental thing. And we don't know yet. I'm not giving him that pass. We don't know yet. But a lot of people try to bring that up. For me, I've never said that. To me, if you watch in the regular season, those type of situations, those adverse situations, he didn't do well. But in the course of a season where you blowing out teams, you playing division opponents and stuff, you only had those situations a handful of times, and he never did well. And so when you get to the playoffs, you are going to have those adverse situations a lot more often. And he didn't do well. And that wasn't a shock to me. It's not a shock to anybody that really knows his game. It wasn't a mental thing. It was just he doesn't have that. That's not part of his game. And so now that I see in the regular season, that is part of his game. He's evolved in most of those areas. Now we'll see in the playoffs. If he gets to the playoffs and it looks completely different, then we could talk about maybe it's a mental hurdle in terms of the playoffs and the anxiety. But as of right now, for me, it's always been a play style thing. Not in play style, but skill set. And now he's shown that he has evolved his skill set. And it's scary to watch, especially with Derrick Henry. But the defense is not even, the pass defense overall is bad. It's not even bad. It's one of the worst. And so coming into this season, I said the loss of the coordinator, the loss of some of the players was going to be, to me, something to watch. And a lot of Ravens fans were chirping hard. Oh, make sure you keep that comeback in the, yeah. So we halfway through the season. And like I said, I didn't think it would be this bad, but it definitely is not the same as last year. And whereas with a Bills team where I could hang my hat on McDermott as a competent coach, the Ravens are more of a question mark, because we know Harbaugh, great coach, good insight, not really coordinating the defense. And the new DC is new, even though he's from the staff. So I don't know that I can hang my hat on anything in terms of they're going to be solid. And we already know they haven't been. They don't blitz as well as they did last year, but I think they're still pretty good. But secondary coverage wise, they're just not sound. And that is a bit scary. And they lost Michael Pierce. That's not great. But Roquan, you got guys. You got guys that can play. And I think the defense will be competent. But it's nowhere near what it was last year. Even though the offense is performing better, the defense definitely has taken a step back. So in terms of contender, for sure, because even if the pass game is, or the pass defense isn't great, if you can control the clock and run the ball, really, you got to ask your defense to play top down. Maybe we're not going to blitz as much. Maybe we're just going to play it cover 4, cover 2, and just really cover 2 sky and just play over the top, rally to the ball, and make the defense or make the offense really nickel and dime. And that can win you games. And again, with Lamar, you got a quarterback that can flip the field with his legs. You got a run game that control the clock. You got a passing game that's competent. That's a contender for me. And then on the edge are the Texans. The Texans, the reason I would give you that is you don't want to really see CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud is legit. And again, if you want to look at the numbers, people will definitely try to make a case. He's regressed. He's this, he's that. At the end of the day, CJ Stroud coming out, Ohio State guy. All Ohio State guys, Bama guys, most of these big programs, we don't know what you're going to do in the pocket because you never had to do it in the league. He came out great. That was one of the shockers. And as far as the analysis of him versus Bryce Young, is a big question mark. We didn't know what he would have to do in the dirty pocket. Now, part of why he was so good is because he is better than what we knew, because he didn't have to do it, but also because people didn't give credit to the Texans O-line. And that was one of my underrated storylines like all year. The Texans O-line, even with injuries, were great in pass pro. I ain't talking about numbers. I'm talking watching the game. And they were excellent. Not excellent this year. So that's going to hurt them. Obviously, your top weapons go down. That's going to hurt. But I think Stover's a good tight end. Ohio State, he knows Stroud, he knows the system. He's pretty good. And then, of course, you got Schultz. I think definitely if you 6-man, 7-man protect, Stroud can kill you with 3 routes. Even still with Tank Dell, Robert Woods, and the guys they got now. And then you expect Nico Collins to come back. So for me, Stroud, with his ability to throw the ball, he can flip the field, and he can slice and dice you. And so I don't think the team's ever out of the game. And then much like I talked about with the Bills, you got really good talent, definitely better than the Bills, but not over the moon talent on the defense. But you have a coordinator for the most part that you trust as the head coach and all that to have this team competent. I don't think the Texans have been world beaters this year or last year on defense, but I do think watching them that they've absolutely been disciplined, and they've overachieved last year. And then this year with more talent, and they got injuries back and forth, but they're doing really well. So when you're talking about playoff games, obviously Stroud has that experience. And I think if the offensive line can clean up some of those issues, you can help with some 6-man protections. I don't really think it has to be Nico Collins for Stroud to hurt you. And then Mixon in the run game is honestly a bonus, even though it kind of is leading the offense right now. It's kind of a bonus. It's a nice tempo balancer, and it allows Stroud to work off play action. And so I definitely think the Texans, they're a round enough team to be a contender. But that's it. Honestly, I think that's it. I don't really need to talk about the playoffs. Team wise, I would maybe talk about the Bengals, but because of where they are with the playoff situation, it's going to be tough. They could get in, but yeah, no. And then I will mention the Steelers because they are up there. The reason I wouldn't put them up there, I don't know that I trust the stability of the offense right now. We all know the situation with the quarterbacks. We know the run game has been better, especially recently. But overall, that's just not a team that I see the running game being dominant enough to hide the passing game. And I don't think the passing game is good enough to win you any games, or not win you any, but to win you multiple games in the playoffs. And then the defense is really good. Again, Tomlin, competent coaching, superstar. The only teams that really have a superstar or a game changer are the Steelers and the Chiefs in terms of contenders. So those are big pluses, but not enough for me to call them contenders for the Super Bowl. All right, so jumping over to the NFC. Lions, real contenders. They added Zadarius Smith. We know they lost Hutch. Now look, the defense is my question. Like, you hate to see the offense coming. There's nothing to say more than that. We know creativity wise, we know talent wise, we know running game wise, play action, O-line, all that. Defensively is my question mark. It's been a question mark, and then Hutch leaving makes it even more. Now, what they were able to do last year, what they've been able to do this year, even with that defense, kudos to Aaron Glenn, kudos to everything, but that's not a legacy that there's no legacy for me to hang my head on. I'm not like, oh, Aaron Glenn is just going to make sure that those guys do what they got to do every time. No, they've had really bad pass defense the last few years, and it's been better this year. And look, maybe Terrion Arnold gets even better. It's been a rough year, but maybe he gets better. But overall, the legacy-wise for this era of Dan Campbell, pass defense has been bad. Pass rush hasn't been good. Hutch goes down. You bring in Zadarius. We'll see what that is. But offense obviously could put up points in a flurry. there's most styles I see the Lions winning, but there's a certain few styles that I'm like, if they get caught in this type of game, it's going to be bad for them. But overall, yes, absolutely a contender. Purely, I think a lot of the team's discipline and grit, and mostly the explosiveness of the offense. All right, the Commanders. Yeah, I gotta say they're a contender. And look, part of this is off the NFC itself. It might not be the same in the AFC, but look, the Commanders have they have a quarterback that just allows so much. I mean, it's Lamar Jackson. I know people for a lot of reasons don't want that comparison, but it's Lamar Jackson. That's the level of bump you get with a Jaden Daniels. Especially because Jaden is so much far along in the passing game than Lamar was at this stage of his career. But still, with the ability to have explosive runs, to press the line of scrimmage and put you in conflict, that adds so much to the offense. Now, is the O-line elite? No. Is the run game efficient? Yes, and creative. Do they have any backs that scare you? No, but they do enough with all their pieces to keep the run game efficient enough to make teams honest. And that is all you need with a Jaden Daniels, because then you can play action, then you can do zone reads and all those different things. And it's just enough to make you hesitate, whether you attacking him, attacking the run, play action. It's just enough to make you hesitate. That gives the offense a huge advantage. And they're being used very creatively by Cliff Kingsbury. But most people don't know Anthony Lynn, run game coordinator, needs to get a lot of credit because Cliff is not known for his run game. Defensive wise, they bring in Lattimore today. I think that's big. The secondary was definitely their biggest issue. Look, if Jonathan Allen is coming back, I'm not sure how long he's out, but Johnny New's been really a nice pickup for them in terms of a rookie. Now look, he went against our O-line, went against the Giants O-line, but we'll see. But I still think having that piece helps, especially to hold you over in momentum until Allen comes back, if he is. Deron Payne's still a dog. Luvu is such a Swiss Army knife, being able to blitz off the edge and blitz from the middle. He adds a dynamic, even though you don't have an edge rusher. Him and Bobby Wagner flying all over the field in the run game. I don't think the defense is perfect. I don't think they're world beaters, but you have, again, kind of that same situation. You got a Dan Quinn who is really strong at game planning and having his team ready. So with the vets they got, the people they bring in Lattimore, you haven't seen a ton of just mental errors, like completely blown assignments. And that's what gets teams beat. I don't think people realize that. Talent, yes, but even with talent, a lot of times the teams that aren't well coached, they're just making coverage bust, or they're making some type of assignment bust that makes it easy for the offense. And those are the types of things that when you look at a contender, do they have a unit where they keep those to somewhat of a minimum, or at least it's not a crazy thing? And that's the thing. Commanders, not a world beater defense, giving up a lot of first downs and everything. That's definitely the question mark. But I think they get better with Lattimore for sure. And I think come playoff time, Quinn will at least have them locked into a game plan where they won't just completely unravel. All right, so we're gonna skip down. Honestly, I can't say they're a contender. I will say I'm not buying the Falcons as a contender. Cardinals, I want to buy in. I did not realize crap, I just saw his name a few times, but I didn't realize the offensive coordinator and the system that they were building in there was so physical. Obviously, as a Bears fan, we saw that firsthand, but there's a lot of things I've been watching around the Cardinals this year where I've seen they love 13 personnel, and I just thought that was kind of weird, but whatever. You think of Cardinals, Kyler Murray, you think of Marvin Harrison, you think of this like real fast, sleek spread offense. That's not what they are at all. James Conner and those guys, they're a downhill run game, and they play action off of that, and obviously Kyler can do some things off of that. And they do it well. They're well coached, but that defense, I could not. Even again, Gannon, giving him credit to getting those guys playing, I can't sign off on that defense. So the next contender for me is the Vikings. Vikings, I wouldn't say easily, but they could end up winning the division. But either way, it looks like the NFC North is going to be well represented in the playoffs. And the Vikings getting in at that 5th seed where you would face the Cardinals, yeah, that'll be on and popping. That'll be on and popping for sure. Brian Flores, look, you hate to see the Vikings offense coming. Whatever you think about Sam Darnold controlling the point well enough, Aaron Jones run pass game, obviously Jay Jetta, Hawkinson and Addison coming back healthy. They bring in Ken Robinson to fill for Darrisaw. Is it Mike? Is it O'Donnell? Kevin O'Donnell, right? Anyway, really good at scheming, really good play caller. That offense, they can control, possess the ball. They also can take shots and flip the field. The defense, we know they can turn it into a pressure cooker. They got a lot of guys that fly to the ball. The big question is the secondary. And Brian Flores, much like I said with these other guys, he's a legacy guy you can trust to have the defense be in position to at least be competent. But they can be beat. That the defense has shown in the last 3 weeks or so, they can be beat. They can be susceptible. But overall, I would trust that defense. And if the defense is holding an opponent to 20 points, I like the Vikings offense to be able to play in that game anytime. Now you get to kind of the tougher joints. To me, I'm going to just go ahead and say the 49ers. Look, the NFC West is a toss-up, and it's going to be tough in the NFC in terms of playoffs. Excuse me, but it's very possible that 2 NFC West teams could get in, and to me, it would have to be the 49ers. Look, 49ers, we know what they got. Ayuk is gone for the year, but we know what they got, what they possibly have coming back. Yeah, there's not much for me to say. That's a contender. The last few years, that was the contender. So they're definitely a contender to me still, with everything that they have. Schedule-wise and division, it might be a little rough this year, but I do think if they get in, I don't care if they're a 7 seed. They are 100% a contender to me. So then after that, you got to go with the Eagles. You gotta go. And Eagles are one of those teams, man. It's kind of like a Madden team where it just doesn't make sense for them not to be playing well. So a lot of Eagles fans, a lot of football fans are saying, hey, they're doing things in spite of the dysfunction of the coach and all that. And that might be the case because you got AJ Brown, who just really has not been able to be stopped since he's got to Philly. Devontae Smith, we know what he can do. And then you add Saquon, and then you'll have Goddard coming back eventually. It's just, I mean, and then you already had a great O-line. And so you lose Kelsey, but still you got a great O-line. And it's just, it's a crazy amount of talent. Then you get to the defense, and it's like they're underachieving. But look, you got, why am I blanking on his name? Oh, man. From Georgia. I can't see his name right now. All I can see is Jay. Oh, I'm having a brain fart. But you got Jordan Davis, not what people thought he would be at this point, but still, somebody out there. And then you got Nolan Smith, who I think is picking up. Sweat has always kind of done his thing. And the linebackers, I think, is definitely a question mark. But you got the young guys in the secondary. If Darius Slay is healthy, CJ GJ's back. It has not been cute, it hasn't been perfect. But it's too much talent, too much speed, too much hunger for you to feel like they can't do this and get it done. Now, that doesn't automatically mean anything, but I do think looking at that roster going into it, outside of the mental issues, they for sure can compete. If you, and all the playoffs ever are when you go to the Super Bowl, it's catching a wave. That's all it ever is. So if the Eagles catch a wave where they lock in 100%, I think they could be a contender. Then you go to probably the last one, the Packers. And I'm on the fence about that, to be honest. I'm on the fence about the Packers. I think the defense has achieved better, closer to what they should have been achieving these last few years. But still, you don't got a legacy to hang your hat on there. We don't really know how that's going to sustain or what they'll look like in the playoffs. Jordan Love, we don't really know kind of what that is going to look like. I don't think the Packers necessarily have a real identity right now in terms of both sides of the ball, really. You bring in Josh Jacobs, and in my mind, the Packers are going to look one way, and Jordan Love's injuries might have thrown that off, but maybe that's just not really Matt LaFleur's thing. And so Josh Jacobs, I think, is getting utilized a little better now, but overall, I don't know that his transition has been great. I don't know that the offensive strategy has been perfect in terms of efficiency. It's been a little more feast or famine, and some people might say that's because of Jordan Love, but I think it's been more feast or famine. And then defensive wise, like I said, better achievement this year, but I'm not ready to say I've seen enough to know that come playoff football, they'll be ready to rock and roll. So to wrap all that up, I mean, to me, Chiefs, Bills, Texans, Ravens, Lions, Commanders, Vikings, 49ers, and Eagles. Those are the contenders for me right now. And I plan on standing on that. Obviously, if something happens, we'll talk about it. But I've done this 2 years in a row now, kind of looking at it this way. Oh, I forgot to mention the Steelers traded for wait, what? Oh, wow. They got Preston Smith. I was hoping we got him. I don't know. Did they need Preston Smith? Well, okay. So yeah, Steelers got Mike Williams and Preston Smith. So that adds to it, but I still feel how I feel. And like I said, I've been doing this 2 years, and looking at the stats, kind of giving my contenders, it panned out both years in a row. So unless there's some major injuries or something like that, I don't think I'm really going to have to flip-flop too much. So anyway, that's it for me. Go down in the comment section, let me know what you think. I'm sure you think I disrespected your team and all that, but we'll see what injuries and shakeups happen as we go forward. But so far, I guess some takeaways from this season so far in the half point. Man, there's some great takeaways. If you're really a student of the game and into football, there's some real great takeaways. People are talking about free agent running back impact. That's not really the conversation. The conversation is the run game itself, not one particular player. And the run game not only being so much more value. And I've said before, if you listen to this channel, the run game didn't go nowhere. The average attempts have not changed much in the last 15 seasons, but the value of it, the way people talk about it, and the way it's being utilized now has gotten a little more creative. There's some definite trends going on in the NFL, and that's definitely big time. Obviously, we know what's going on with the young quarterbacks and that conversation about development. That's kind of come to a head this year. And yeah, there's definitely some interesting trends so far of this season. Name of the game is depth. I think that's always going to be it. I mean, outside of the quarterback, really, the name of the game is depth. I think last year we had so many injuries before the season and early in the season that I think people might have forgot. But this year, the injuries are happening throughout the middle of the season. And so it's a little bit more relevant than it was last year. But still, injuries and depth, that's always going to be a big part of the game. So anyway, that's it for me. Go down in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Share it around. Get the convo started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you for listening.